At 18, I was tossed out because I was doing nothing with my life. No friends, virgin, no schooling. I was a shit stain to my parents. My first night on the streets was hard. It was -5 Celsius. I remembered this old boarded up house a few miles away, so I walked there. I spent a good half hour kicking off some of the boards to get in. Then, slumped in a corner. I thought I was going to die there. The next day, I sat in there worrying. On the night, the cold crept in, and I sought to stay warm. If I got sick, I was dead. I wandered around for trash bags, cardboard, anything to stay warm. Saw a blue charity bin outside an Oxfam shop unlocked. When? I ransacked that motherfucker and ran back to my hovel with 6 bags of rags. They were very heavy, but I knew they wouldn't make the same mistake. Better to have too much than not enough. I smothered myself in the rags to stay warm, and it worked okay-ish. I more or less fell asleep in the pile. Shit felt good. Felt that evil in me start to sprout. A few days later, my hunger was killing me, so at night, I lurked out again, diving into bins for half-eaten kebabs, bottles of pop, etc. It was disgusting, but it kept me alive. I lived this way for about a month. One night, after wandering, I fell asleep on a park slide. I promised myself I would just rest my eyes. I woke up with a boot in my gut. I was being kicked, punched, stomped by a group of 14 to 16-year-olds. I tried to run, but they ran after me. I made it into someone's back garden. I was cornered. I grabbed the nearest thing, a broken-off rusted gate, and began violently swinging it. I managed to get 2 of them in the face, and they gave up and I collapsed. Then, the owner came out screaming at me, so I stole the gate and ran back to my hovel. My midnight raid routine continued for months until I started to get real pissed off at everyone. No fuckers were helping me, so I had to help myself. So I started raiding residential neighborhood bins. They had to have better shit in there. More wasteful the better. I would leave bags torn wide open, chicken carcass, or whatever I could find thrown all over the street. And this was fine for a while, until I started wanting more than just mere survival. I wanted money. I started breaking into old cars. My trusty fucking brick was my weapon of choice. Many sat-navs, phones, wallets, expensive shit fell to its power. I'd beat the fuck out of a locked glove box just to open him. Retards thought if they locked it, I wouldn't look. Fuck me, if it was locked, I knew something good had to be inside. I pawned that shit and started saving money. Money was good. I could afford to buy pizza rather than eat filthy stale crust out of the bins. And I kept my money in a pair of thick tights I wore on me under my jeans. Eventually, I had 1,000 quid. The pawn shops I sold my stuff to ripped me off because they knew the stuff I was selling was stolen. And they needed money to keep their mouths shut. And I didn't have to sign any forms saying that I used to own it. So fair enough, as long as I was getting money. With that 1,000, I made a plan. I went to the council house and bought a new birth certificate to prove my identity. Then I started sleeping in an internet cafe every night. They had nice big chairs, and at 15 quid a night, I could internet and sleep as much as I wanted. 10 p.m. till 8 a.m., using the internet cafe, I started researching what I needed to do to get off the streets. Things were looking up for me. I thought my year of hell was over. I looked online for jobs and how one could go about getting a household without any real ID. And I was fucked. I needed the chicken before the egg. In order to renew my passport and driving license, I needed a place to stay. So I asked Marvin if I could put his cafe down as my residential address. He told me to fuck off. So I had to find a hostel. They wanted either. And I fucking raged. I was trapped on the streets. Without proving who I was, I couldn't get anywhere. Eventually, my 1,000 turned into 200. I was running out of cash fast. So I decided to start sleeping in my hovel and eating out of the bins again. And that was fine. My money was saved until I could figure out a way out. Until one night I was having a wash in a public park toilet. And I was mugged. They took my money and beat the shit out of me. All I was left with was the boxers I was wearing, and I found my jeans halfway across the park. I was back to nothing. Many nights I cried. I didn't want to go back to breaking into cars and pissing people off, but I had to, so a few nights later, I did. I found another brick and I broke into a brand new BMW, one with great alarms and all the bells and whistles because I spotted a purse on the passenger seat. It was worth the risk. In the purse, I found jewelry, 150 quid, credit cards, debit cards, pictures, etc. Of course, I took the jewelry and pawned it, and I was back up to 240 quid in a single night. Rock on. I thought of a way out. It was risky, but fuck it. I was so used to stealing everything else by now. Why not pretend I lived somewhere, right? Right. I searched around for a house that was abandoned. The hovel I was living in was obviously condemned, and would have sent alarm bells ringing, but this one house seemed recently vacated. A council house, obviously. Metal grills meant council. I waited until night, then I snuck around the back. To my fucking astonishment, there was a locked dog flap. It took little more than a good fucking kicking to get in. I now had a residential address. Now I needed a passport application and a driving license. I went to the post office the next day, filled out the forms. The day after that, got a passport picture done, got my doctor to countersign, and about a month later, I had 2 letters with my name and address on it, and some government-approved ID. Now, things were looking up. I could apply for jobs. I can just about laugh about it now, but that gate kept me safe when I was asleep. I would sleep with it next to me in the hovel. It was too heavy to use as something like a bat, but I could carry it and I could swing it, and it proved its use. I started applying for jobs. This was 2 years ago. Recession. No fucker was hiring anyone with no skills. Everyone who had been laid off had already snapped up jobs. I camped out at the job center for 2 hours a day, begging for a job, any job. But the way I looked, the clothes I wore, the way I smelled, etc., I wouldn't have gotten a job even if I was offered one. I suppose they saw that too. I needed to clean myself up, but how could I? Endless fucking challenges. Nobody's going to leave a suit, a shower, and a razor set in their car. And breaking into houses was out of the question. With around 90 quid left, spent from getting my ID, yes, it is that expensive, I took a chance. Went to Primark, bought my shit, 2 sets of casual clothes and a suit bringing me down to 30 quid. Went to a local swimming pool, snuck into the changing room, took a shower, stole a jacket that someone had left on the coat hooks on my way out, and that night, I went to 24-hour ASDA, bought a shaving kit and scissors, shaved in the bathroom, and cut my hair before getting swiftly kicked out. I looked semi-presentable, and lo and behold, the job center started giving me the time of day, and finally, I started getting somewhere. There was an opening for an IT temp, no quals necessary. I fucking jumped at it. The company was small, but it looked promising. Very fucking promising. I was wrong. Despite knowing my shit, I was looked down upon. It was obvious I was street shit. However, there was one girl who kind of looked past it. And at lunch, she started talking to me. She was Polish and didn't speak English very well at all, but even though I smelt like sweat and shit, she tried to make conversation. Unfortunately, my time on the streets turned me fucking nuts. I didn't trust people. I hated everyone. And I knew she was only talking to me out of some sense of obligation. She didn't actually like me. One day, after work, I started walking home, and she asked where I live. I didn't tell her. I said it was none of her business. She looked at me point blank and said, "You're a tramp, aren't you? It's obvious. The way you look, smell, act, it's written all over your face." And I started crying in the street. And I'm not talking weeps. I cracked and let it all out. Slumped down next to a wall and she just stood there, looking at me. When I let up, she said, "I'll take you for something to eat, but only if you promise to tell me everything." I can help you. Fine. She didn't say in that great of English, but give her a break. She's fucking Polish. I don't speak a word of Pole. And for once in a year and a half, I reached out for help. Real help. She took me to fucking Papa John's, bought me a huge cheese pizza, and I spilled everything. Where I was, what I was doing, the stealing, the struggling, the muggings, the beatings, everything. And then she said something I'd fucking wanted someone to say to me for a long, long time. It's going to be okay. I'm going to help you. I didn't care people were staring. I sat and silently wept as she told me what she could do, what I could do, places I could visit for housing, benefits I was entitled to, etc. It was amazing. Over the next few weeks, she bought in forms for me to sign. They were tenancy papers, and every night after work, we would go to the same pizza place and sign forms. She would talk me through processes. She told me how my squatting would eventually land me in deep shit, and asked if I had anywhere else to stay, a real address. I told her I didn't, and she just said, "Oh, that's bad." I never expected her to be able to help with that, and I thought we hit a dead end, again. She said she would find a way around it, and a week later, sitting at that pizza place, I was filling out an income support form, and she said these exact words. "I fill in addresses. You will stay at my house, you will work, no free ride, and you not stay forever. This is just helping." I looked up, and I swear, if I never thought it would be a deal breaker, I would have jumped over that table and squeezed her until her eyes popped out. I would scrub her floors with a toothbrush if it actually meant being able to sleep lying down in a safe, warm place again. Things were moving along great. At the end of the month and a half, I was paid. 100 went to her for rent, and I was told to buy my own toiletries, my own clothes, and food with the rest. Things were looking up in a major way for me. The first night, I met her near our workplace. All of my things being the clothes that I wore, the documents and passports in my jeans pocket, and we waited for her bus. She started laying down all the ground rules. "No dirty, no leaving, no complain. You do as I say, you eat what I eat, you wash when I tell you," and etc., etc. All more than agreeable. She seemed like she was having doubts about me, understandable. She had known me less than 2 months. Her good nature was the only thing keeping her from backing out, and there was no fucking way I was crossing her. Not after all she had done for me. I listened intently and mentally noted all of her conditions. To me, I was amazed I was actually there. I felt warmth in me I've not felt in ages. She showed me into her living room, and there was a cot made out for me. She said, "This is where you sleep. This is where you live." It had a thin mattress, a sheet, a duvet, and a pillow. It was old, obviously predating her moving in. Probably found in the heating cupboard, but to me, it was good as a fucking emperor-sized bed with a foam mattress and Egyptian cotton sheets. It was amazing. I mean, you'd think it too if you were sleeping in piles of dirty, raggy clothes for over a year. I stood, staring at her, trying to hold back my tears. She said, "This is home for you now, only for a little while. Welcome home." I was so happy I started crying. My smile was genuine from ear to ear. I went to hug her, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to threaten her. She smiled and extended her arms, and for the first time in a long time, I had a nice, long, comforting hug. I'm crying right now just remembering that moment. It was amazing. She went into her bedroom and threw a bag at me. Inside, I had 3 towels, 5 sets of socks and boxers, 3 sets of bedclothes, and some shower gel. She said to me, "This is start. You give me your bag, you wash really well, clean shower after, I sort out bag while you wash." And while I washed, she went through my things and picked out things I could use, and threw the rest. When I came out of the shower in my new things, she smiled and said, "Haha, it is good start. We sleep now. You do not come out of room." She waited until I was in bed, turned off the light, and closed the door. I cried myself tears of happiness until I fell asleep. My forms came back. I was officially on the housing list, and every day for a long time, things went smoothly. Wake, shower, eat, work, chores, eat, bed. Over the weeks, she worked on reintegrating me, took me for a haircut, helped me get things like clothes, taught me some of her cooking. I cooked blitzes and chicken Kiev all the time, taught me how to pay bills, took me for a new bank account. I was getting paid in pay mandate slips that I could take to the company's bank beforehand, and started making me feel like a person again. At home before bed, we would sit and watch TV and talk about things. I learned a lot about her life and friends back in Poland. Why she was in Britain. Pay in Poland is crap, and even with the British cost of living, she was sending home more than she could spare when she lived in Poland each month. And every day, I told her how grateful I was to her. Slowly, I started getting privileges, like her trusting me to watch TV while she went to bed, being able to go to the toilet at night, being able to go shopping and come back. I really was beginning to feel like a person again, to the point that my humanity started returning. I started being sociable at work, keeping our secret, of course, and for the first time in ages, I was happy. Really happy. Skip ahead 4 months, she completely trusted me, and I would never do a thing to harm her. In fact, I became very protective over her. She was a goddess to me, something to be guarded. She was the only friend I had in the world. Of course, I'd be like that. And then, she started doing little things that I look back on now and see as signs. Before, I was completely oblivious. She would rest her head on me when we watched movies late at night, share food from her plate, steal things off mine, wear my clothes to bed, and act like hers were all dirty, or say she liked mine better because they were baggy. It was November at this point. One night, she said, "We need tea, milk, butter. Can you go?" And as always, I would grab my wallet and head for the door. I walked to the supermarket a few blocks away and collected up what we needed. And when I came back, the cot was folded away. I looked and it was gone. She looked at me and smiled and said, "It costs too much to keep warm at night alone. We can try tonight's sleep in my bed. I think you will be good." Dumbfounded, I nodded, took a shower, put my bedclothes on, and we got into bed. I could not sleep a wink. This was, whoa, to me. Completely unbelievable. Remember, I'd never been in a bed with a girl before. I didn't know what the hell to do. But I knew one wrong move, and I'd be out on my ass, and straight back to square one. So, I just lay there. Then she started talking, word for word. She said this. "Hard to think months ago you were Tramp. You are such a gentleman now. You make good start. You work hard. And now you're in my bed. And I like it. You do good when you try." I said, "Well, I owe it all to you. Everything. If it wasn't for you, I know where I'd be right now. Sleeping in filth? Yeah. You are a real man. You try hard to be better. Filth is for pigs. Thanks. For everything. I really mean it. If you mean it, then let me do this. You do nothing, okay?" She took my arm and slowly rolled me round to face her. Then came in close and snuggled up to me. Then took my other arm and folded over her. She said, "Stay like this." I really couldn't have moved if I had tried. I was happy and petrified at the same time. My heart was going a mile a minute. She caught on and said, "Shh, we are keeping warm, go to sleep." She fell asleep first, and after lying there, mind completely blank for hours, I did too. Sharing her bed became standard from then on, and after a week of her training me to hold her while she slept, it became normal to me. Normal, but something I looked forward to every night. Of course, I would sometimes think of sex, but I knew where I was. She called the shots. I knew not to cross her, and I was adamant on never pissing her off. My money was saving up quite well in the bank, and before I knew it, I was almost normal. Now we reached Christmas, and I thought of an excellent present to get her. I knew she wouldn't be expecting it. She mentioned it once, one thing she loved. I rushed out a week before Christmas to get it, and I hid it in my locker at work. Christmas Eve, we drank Baileys. Her parents and friends had sent her presents from Poland, and she was like a 10-year-old, waiting for 12:12, using her "I get to open one now and the rest tomorrow" clause. We watched Scrooged on TV, talked, drank responsibly. No one was drunk. One glass of Baileys an hour would hardly stun a horse. And as soon as it hit 12:01, she jumped up and said, "Yes! Now I get to open one." And she began surveying her presents. Before she picked any up, I said, "I have one for you. I hope you don't mind. I just wanted to show my appreciation for all you've done." She looked at me with rabid excitedness. I pulled it out from behind the TV and handed it to her. She looked at me with a face beaming with excitement. I said, "Open if you want to." She tore off the wrapping to reveal a brand new Yamaha saxophone. She said to me once it was her favorite thing to do in school, and she got really good but couldn't afford one, so she had to quit at 18. She was only 22 now. I thought she would still love it. She was always sending every spare penny home, so she would never be able to get one herself. She stared at it, let out an excited utterance, like a "ah." She held it for a second, and put it back into its case, and jumped at me. She wrestled me down onto the sofa, pinned me down, and wrapped her arms around me. "Thank you! How did you know? It's amazing, I love it, thank you so much." I said, "You have no idea how important you are to me. I would still be in the gutter if it wasn't for you. This is nothing compared to how much I owe you. I'm just so glad you like it." She looked down at me and said, "You really mean what you say, don't you?" Sincerely. I nodded. "Close your eyes for a second." I stared at her for a second, not knowing where she was going with this, but she said it again. "Close your eyes." I did, and she kissed me so deeply and passionately. She never broke it for ages, running her fingers up my arms and resting them in my palms. She continued, obviously loving every second of it. I kept my eyes closed and enjoyed every second, until she pulled away. I opened my eyes, and no sooner did I open them, she tugged me up and led me into the bedroom. I was thrown onto the bed. She dived on top of me, straddling my clothes off, kissing me, tearing her clothes off, me completely clueless and lost, not knowing what to do, but loving every second. Hard as a fucking rock. I was mounted and ravaged, pinned down and ridden harder. I could swear the room was moving. Completely intoxicated by everything, she moved my hands up to her breasts and squeezed her hips even harder, and rode faster and faster, until I felt myself coming. She felt the cue my body gave and bowed down on me, squeezed tight, and rode hard. It was a win-win. We both came my first time, and we did it 4 more times. It was very early in the morning before we were both too exhausted to carry on. As she rolled off me and curled herself around, I said, "In case you didn't hear the first 100 times, you're amazing." She giggled and wrapped herself around me as I got between the sheets. As she put her arms around me, I said, "I'm glad you like the sax." She said, "I got more than my sax, which I love, thank you. You were a virgin before tonight, I remember you saying." I looked over and nodded. 3 things, actually. That was my first kiss on the sofa, too." She awed and squeezed me tightly. Then she went, "Oh," and switched her nightstand light on. "I got you a present, too. Would you like it?" I smiled and nodded. Nothing can compare to what I had just had, but all the same, I was thrilled she got me something, too. I wasn't expecting anything, but she pulled a little box with a bow tie on it. She took my hand and placed it in my palm. I pulled the bow and opened the box. There was a key inside, and a little note. It simply read, "Stay here with me." I wrapped my arms around her and squeezed tightly. Of course I wanted to stay. She knew exactly what to get me. I was thrilled. After a little more making out, we fell asleep. I woke up the next day to the sweet sound of sacks coming from the living room. I assessed my nakedness and the clothes thrown around the room. Last night really happened. I'm here to stay. She likes me. I like her. This is the best Christmas ever. I love my life. I walked into the living room after pulling my bedclothes back on. She was sitting in nothing but her panties with the sacks, all of her other presents open and handled, yet abandoned. It would seem she really liked my sacks the best. As I entered, I said, "Good morning," and she jumped up. Loving the sight, I smiled. Who wouldn't? She ran towards me and screamed, "Christmas!" and fell into my arms. I couldn't have been happier, simply because she was so happy. She really was like a big kid. She led me in and sat me down next to her, then pushed me over and pressed down on me, then said, "New rules." "Oh, okay. Now you are my boyfriend. You live here. You don't accept any house offers, ever." And as she said, "ever," she thumped my chest softly. "I completely agree," I said, wrapping my arms around her. She giggled and waggled around on top of me. "Now I have 4 things. It is a very good Christmas." "Then we're 4 for 4, and I bet I love my presents more." She pressed up to bring her face to mine and kissed me, then got up to get dressed. I remember sitting there, absolutely, positively, completely content at that moment. Nothing in life could get any better than that point. I felt amazing. Like Superman on a crack binge. It was incomparable to anything I'd ever experienced. And the whole of that day, I had a complete sense of wonder, excitement, and peace. We talked to her folks and she introduced me over the phone, with a few fabrications as to how we met, and for how long we had been dating. And I got to say Merry Christmas to her folks, who seemed to like me straight off the bat by her mother's tone and words. We ate pomodoro with noodles for substitution of a big Christmas meal, attacked the Baileys in the evening watching TV, and in the evening, I was treated to a private sax recital. She played some phenomenally beautiful songs on her sax. And in the night, we kissed, cuddled, and went for round 2. It was the best day of my entire life, Anon. It really, truly was. New Year's Eve was just as special. As the clock struck midnight, she kissed me and held it for the full minute with her arms wrapped around my back and neck. As she broke, she said, "Happy New Year's." I said, "Happy New Year's." We gazed into each other's eyes as the fireworks went off deeper in the city, the skies alight with the most romantic and brilliant setting available. After a while, she said, "We start as we mean to go on, yes?" I said, "Absolutely." And we went to the bedroom again, and didn't stop until 5 a.m. It was like this until January 4th. Then we went back to work, and our love grew and grew over the months. We reached March 21st, her birthday, in which I both presented her with a custom mouthpiece for a saxophone, and I confessed my love. And she said something that has always stayed with me. She said, "When we met, we were alone. I think fate made us meet. Life has been so good since I met you. You are my everything now. I love you too." My birthday was great too. She took me to Poland to meet her folks, and they heard the real story of how we met. And they completely accepted it, and loved me for making her so happy. Her mother and friend even hinted at marriage, and that I shouldn't make her wait too long. Poland is a great country, whatever anyone says. Her town was great, the people were really friendly, everything was so cheap compared to the UK. And man, do the Poles know how to lay it down and party. I had an amazing time there. Things went so well. We made so many plans, so many plans. I bought her a ring and popped her the question August 12th. It was an unconditional yes. We planned to have the wedding in our hometown in Poland. I had disowned my family after all, and I had no friends. Having it in England where nobody would celebrate it with us was pointless. We saved up 4,300 quid, the wedding we planned, along with a present I wanted to give to her family. The honeymoon in the Canary Islands needed just under 6,000, but we were working hard to make it happen. And although we were living frugally to make it happen, we loved every second of each other's company. The passion never left us for even a second. Never had an argument, and she was a strong leader who loved and respected her subordinate. I was a loyal subordinate who loved and respected his leader. We worked well as a team, too well. We lived for each other's sake, constantly, relentlessly expressing our love for each other. That Christmas we spent in Poland with our family, I got every single one of them a gift to show them appreciation for raising and nurturing the love of my life the way they had. I got her a little glass rose made with her and my name inscribed along the stem. She loved it. She really did. February 7th, she collapsed at work out of the blue. She fell into a coma. Her family came and stopped with me for a while. We visited her every day. There was always someone by her side. Every second someone could be there, someone was. I pleaded with her to wake up every single day, even if it was just a whisper. I would say to her, "It's Christmas. Come on, babe, wake up. You have presents." And a few times, I swore I saw her smile. I got a call in the middle of the night. She passed away May 2nd. She was flown back to her hometown, and I spent every penny I had on her send-off. I wanted her to have the most beautiful ceremony anyone ever had. I got fired. I applied for dole and income support, and I've never left this place for more than a few hours since. Her sacks, her clothes, her things, they're all here. I'll go to bed holding her picture every night. If moving on means forgetting her, I hope I never, ever fucking do.